All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Stop Interviewing, Start Selling. I'm your host, Philip Meyer, and today we have Mrs. Breanna Baker. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm super excited. I'm sorry about last time having to reschedule on you. My internet wasn't what it is today. And yeah, there was a gigantic windstorm that came through Idaho and just knocked everything down. So and then all of a sudden it got super cold. It went from being like a high of 85 to like a high of 65. And I was like, what sorcery is this? I'm not used to this kind of weather. But
Yeah, we had that happen too, but
yeah,
it's just been smoky and gross here because of all the fires. So
that's right. Yeah. And you guys are in, are you in San Francisco?
we're close to San Francisco. We're on the other side of the peninsula from San Francisco. So we've got that marine layer that kind of comes in and tucks us in. And it's been holding in all the smoke and all the ash and all the dirt. So it's pretty dark here actually.
Yeah. That's one of many things I don't miss about California. But yeah, but one thing that I do absolutely miss about the state is you, Ben, and the kids, obviously. Like, we miss you guys every single day. And for those of you who may recognize the last name Baker, Ben Baker was actually the first guest I had on my podcast. So this is his better half, much better looking half as well. And
Oh, thank you.
today we're talking about your new business opportunity, correct?
Yes, yes, we are.
Gotcha. So
We're talking about igniting transformation.
absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about your background first, and then tell me more about what igniting transformation is.
So my background is that I've been a dabbler. I love to learn. And so I'm constantly, I don't know, just reading a lot. And I've always had a passion for the medical field. And I thought about becoming a nurse. I've thought about becoming a lawyer. I've thought about a whole bunch of different things. And um, I've, I mean, like I said, I've been a dabbler. So I've done everything from working at a bank as a teller. Um, I went through esthetician training. I'm a certified medical assistant. I've got my bachelor's degree in public health. Um, I really like to learn. So I've done a lot of different things. But really, when it comes down to my business, which is called Igniting Transformation, and it's a health coaching business. And the reason that I decided to go into this particular area is because as much as, Western medicine is great, I feel like it really has its limitations because the whole thing is that doctors are chasing symptoms and they're not trying to find the root cause. They're not trying to help really determine what's going on. And that was the case with me. I got really sick when I was 18 and I didn't really know what was going on, and I lost a lot of weight and it was really scary. And I had gone into the doctors 4 months prior and they didn't catch on my blood work that my blood sugar was about 480. And for those of you who don't know, your blood sugar is supposed to be between about 80 and 120 or
Whoa.
70 and 110. So obviously that's a big jump.
Yeah.
And so in April of 2005, I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I went to an endocrinologist and he gave me a vial of insulin. He gave me some syringes and told me I could have 45 carbs for breakfast, 45 carbs for lunch, and 60 carbs for dinner, which is not a whole lot, especially because I dropped about 20 pounds. And so I wasn't going to be able to gain a whole lot of weight back.
Yeah. And for those of you that are listening to that and you're going, 45 carbs, that's not that bad. Okay.
That's
If you
nothing.
go and purchase a white mocha, which I used to drink a ton of them
Right.
a long time ago. If you go purchase a white mocha, the tall one, like it's about this big, that's 480 calories. So how did you manage that? Like, I mean, you obviously have to read the back of packages of food every day and like look at what you're you're eating. I mean,
Yeah, oh,
sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I became a walking carb counter. So, I mean, I can look at a cup of rice and I can tell you how many carbs are in it. And it's been 15 years as of April. I've been a type 1 diabetic. And so I've become quite the walking carb guide. And let's see, in 2010, I was actually also diagnosed with celiac disease. And it was actually your wife who helped me figure that out. I kept having all these weird symptoms, and she's like, well, maybe you have a gluten intolerance, maybe this, maybe this. And so we just kept talking about it. And I asked my doctor, I said, can you just run the test for me? And he was like, no, people don't develop celiac disease. I was like, well, that's not true. Like, that's
Yeah,
bull
I'm a doctor.
malarkey.
You
Even
have to
I know
believe
that's
me.
bull malarkey. And it took me months of fighting with him to just run a simple blood test. And like, he wasn't the one getting his blood drawn, right? It was me. I was the one going to get stabbed with a needle, not him. So eventually, I think it was about 3 months later, after I told him I was going to take him to court for negligence, he decided to run it. And then he emailed me back because he felt like an idiot. He didn't even call me. And he said, I'm really sorry, Mrs. Baker, you were right. You have celiac disease. And he gave me like a list of foods to avoid. And that was it. So basically, my health and the care that I've gotten from the people who are supposed to be helping has been crap. So I have a huge, huge passion for helping others in any aspect of life. I've always been kind of everyone's counselor, I guess. I have a lot of friends who come to me and talk to me about, anything health related or emotional, whatever it may be. I guess I just have a personality where I'm easy to talk to. And so I was trying to figure out, how I could best incorporate my love for helping people and my love for people with autoimmune disease and just my love of nutrition and health. And I researched many different programs, and I came across a coaching school that I wanted to go to, and they didn't have any specialties. And so I'd just be like a general coach. And I wanted more than that. I wanted to be able to specialize. And so I actually came across ITN, which is the Institute of Transformational Nutrition. And that's where I got my certification through.
Wow. So that there's so much to unpack there. One thing that you mentioned is you mentioned my wife, and so growing up, like honestly, I think I took my health for granted. And I mean, I could go for a run, I could do push-ups, I could do sit-ups, I could play sports, whatever it was. And then it wasn't until I got married that uh, I started to realize that there are people with immune systems and with just a different uh, what's what I'm looking for, a different spectrum of health than what I was used to. Because like me, like if I get sick, like I'll get a cold, I'll get the flu for maybe like 24 hours, maybe 48 if it's really bad. But my wife, as because of her immune system, she gets sick, she's down for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
it's a mess. So, but one thing that you also mentioned was you mentioned that you had type 1 diabetes. And I think
Right.
there's a misconception with our population, our society that feels like diabetes is only like a overweight person thing. Like if you get overweight, you're you have diabetes. But looking at you,
Right.
you're very trim, you're very fit, right? So I remember the first time you told me, I was shocked. I was like, wait, what? Really? Um, but it seems like that's happening a lot more now too. Your story with the doctor and having to self-diagnose yourself and having to go back and actually fight to have those tests run. I know my father-in-law, he struggles with that as well, and actually had that same thing happen where once he fought, he actually got his diagnosis and it was completely different from what the doctor was saying. Right. So
Right.
yeah, that's that's scary. So that's essentially what inspired you to go. How did you learn about the what's it called again? The
ITN.
yes.
I researched many different coaching programs, and they're the only ones who actually have a specialty program. So you do their base program, which is the Certified Transformational Nutrition Coach. And then after that, after you finish that program, then you do a 6-week intensive on the specialty. And so they have various specialties that you can do. I chose autoimmune disease because to me, everyone is diagnosed with an autoimmune disease right now, and you can't really diagnose an autoimmune disease because most of the autoimmune diseases right now, it is a guessing game, and they're doing tests to rule other things out that they know they can rule out, but they're not even 100% sure. So interestingly enough, I had a client that I was coaching, and she kept telling me about these symptoms that she was having, and I just kept racking my brain. I'm not a doctor, by the way, but I can help get to the root cause. And so I just want to make sure that I point that out. So not a doctor, can't diagnose, but I can help get to the root cause. And that's the most important thing, is that we figure out what the underlying issue is, because chasing symptoms doesn't do anything. And so she was told by her doctor that she had celiac disease. And then she started having all these other really weird symptoms. And I happened to be studying the Lyme disease unit in my schooling, and every symptom she was having matched up with Lyme disease. And I'm a very religious person. And so I was actually praying to know how to help her. And in my gut, I just knew, like, you need to tell her or recommend, or what's the word I'm looking for, share with her that this thought keeps coming to your mind of Lyme disease. And so she went to her doctor and she said, hey, can you run this test for Lyme disease? Well, she did, and it came back that she has antibodies for Lyme disease. Now, if you have antibodies in your body, it means that your body has fought this.
Yep.
And her doctor told her, oh, you don't have to worry about that. It's probably just a fluke. So I have a test that I really like to run that I've used on myself, and it's by a company called Creating Balanced Health. And it's a bioresonance or bioenergetic test. And basically, our bodies hold energy. Everything in our body holds energy. Our bodies are energy. And so as we react to different things, our body will hold that energy, even with trauma. So if somebody has a traumatic experience, it doesn't matter when it was in their life, their body holds on to that trauma and that energy. And so as I was talking more and more with her, I just shared with her, because she's also my friend. And so I was able to kind of overstep my bounds when we weren't coaching. I said, hey, I'd really take this test if I were you. And she took it, and she has 3 forms of Lyme in her body. And it just shows you, it's just frustrating that I don't think our doctors intentionally chase after symptoms. I just think that they're so inundated with so many sick people that they don't have the time to genuinely sit down and give patients the care that they need. And so that's why I like to have clients, because I can choose if I have 1 client or 10 clients, or if I have 30 clients, or if I do group coaching where, you know, we all come together and discuss different things. And I think that's a huge benefit of being a coach, is that I can sit down with somebody and I can give them however much time they need and really truly help them feel better. And I mean, it's just, I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible. And I think it's such an amazing opportunity that I can do that for somebody.
Yeah, I honestly, it gives me hope, only because, like, I think again about my wife, and now that I have 3 kids with 1 on the way, I don't know how I'm going to afford that. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're wondering why I haven't taken the time to thank my sponsors, it's because I don't have any yet. So if you're looking to support me and my family, please be a sponsor. LinkedIn. Anyways, just kidding. But
But
that
no, seriously.
but what you're saying, honestly, it gives me hope, because I feel like the way that you're coming at it is like a totally different motivation than what a doctor has, right? Because you're legitimately looking for a root cause. You're looking for something that maybe the doctor's missed, And I feel like people are going to listen to this episode and they're going to go, well, she must think that she knows better than a doctor. That's not what she's saying at all. I mean, I feel like what you're saying is that you've been through a different training. You looked at a different spectrum of this problem or what the problems may be, and you're trying to fix it from a completely different way. A very wise man once told me a long time ago, there's not one person, one group, one entity, one company that has a lock on all the great ideas out there. And sometimes you're wrong, right? I mean, doctors can be wrong. That's why they have insurance for malpractice. That's why when you threatened your previous doctor with a lawsuit, he went, oh crap, I better actually look into this and see what happens, right? So
Right.
for people that are wondering this, because my next question to you is, training credibility is obviously a big thing. How much training did you have to go through in order to be in the position that you're in now? And what was that like?
So, okay. So here's another thing, and it might come across to people like, oh, well, she only has this much time. Oh, so the program is a 14-month program. And then you have a 6-week intensive. And the thing is I already have a huge background and a huge knowledge in basically all of these classes that I've already taken. Um, so the scientific and the psychology and like the anatomy and physiology and the biology, all of that, I've already taken all those classes. Now I've taken them in a junior college. I took them, at BYU, Idaho. I've taken all of these classes already. So I had a huge knowledge. And so it was basically a refresher course for me. It was more of me learning how to use that knowledge, and also how to be a coach, how to be an effective coach and really help people. Because coaching is an art. It's not just sitting there and giving everybody all the answers, because like I'm not the expert and I don't want people to take that the wrong way. But really, you're the expert on yourself. And I'm guiding you to realize that. And I'm helping to support you and use the knowledge that I have to help you find those things. Um, Another thing to add to that is that I'm actually doing a 12-week intensive course right now that enables me to order lab work for people, such as the GI mapping test, the MRT 170 test, which is a food sensitivity test that actually measures food sensitivity against your DNA. And so it will actually tell you if those foods make your body go into an inflammatory state, which is like basically the root cause of all autoimmune disease is chronic inflammation. But you have to try to figure out what that root cause is for that chronic inflammation. What made you inflammatory to begin with. And so I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly doing things that will allow me to better serve my clients. I'm not just going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I know everything. I don't. Nobody does. But the difference is that I'll admit that I don't know everything, but I know a lot, and I have an upper hand because I know how somebody with an autoimmune disease feels. I know what it's like to chase symptoms. I know what it's like to have flare-ups where you're in pain or you're getting headaches and you don't know why, or you ate something and now you're bloated and you look 9 months pregnant. Like, I get it from just a different level.
You're talking about
And
me right
I think that's I can't see. I can only see your face. But
now. That's okay.
I
Just
I
focus
just
on
have
this.
I just have a different level of empathy than I think a lot of doctors do too. To add back to when I was diagnosed, I remember nurses and doctors looking at me. They're like, "We know how you feel," and I said, "Are you 18 years old, laying in a hospital bed, supposed to leave for college in a week, and now you just got told you can't leave to college because you to stay here?"
Yeah.
And they were like, well, no. And I said, have you been diagnosed with a life altering like disease? No. And there are two people that actually changed my whole path of my diabetes. And one of them was a nurse that I met on Sutter has what they call a PENS team, which it's the pediatric endocrinology department, their specialty for diabetics. And she was diabetic and she understood. And she actually made me, I wanted to be a diabetes educator from that point until a few years ago when I talked to many different diabetic educators, and they were like, you really don't want to do this. And they explained a lot of like how their hands are tied and everything, and how they really want to help more, but they can't. And so I want the freedom to be able to address nutrition from so many different aspects, um, holistically. I love the holistic approach that it's not what you're ingesting only, it's also your relationship with yourself, it's your relationship with your spouse or your significant other, it's your relationship with God or nature. It's also how you handle stress, and what you do for movement, and what you do to be mindful and live in the present. Like, it's your nutrition is so much more than just what you eat, and people don't realize that.
Yeah. um, that's absolutely true. When you're saying that you're not the expert, you don't know everything. One thing that popped into my mind was anybody that has gained any sort of success or accomplishment within their lives, whether it's in business or their personal life, they didn't do it alone, right? I mean, they consulted multiple people. I think about a lot of the business owners I sit down with every week, or some of the CEOs I've met, who have multiple advisors that come from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, that may not even agree with them half the time, but they at least consider the possibility that something else could be something contrary to what they believed in the first place. I think that health is such a weird thing because like I always use the phrase, I'm too stupid to know any better, right? Like this COVID thing, I have no idea what COVID is, what causes it. When you talk about autoimmune, I know what that is because I live with that myself every day in the form of my wife, and I'm hoping, knock on wood, that my kids don't have to suffer through that, right? But as as a person that sees someone go through that, when you say the doctors tell you, yeah, we know how you feel, they don't, at least not in that circumstance, unless they've actually been through that that very specific trial in their life. They really have no clue. So as far as autoimmune, explain autoimmune for people that don't know what that is.
So autoimmune disease is basically auto meaning self. It's your immunity, your own immune system attacking your body. And it's in various ways that it does that. It can be autoimmune diabetes, where you're, um, so in my case, I'll explain it in my case. So um, when I was 18 years old, I got a virus. And after I was healed, so I thought from the virus, my body started to attack itself. So the virus was genetically very similar to my islet cells. And your islet cells are basically the little transport cells that transport your sugar through your body, that are created by your pancreas. And so my body started attacking my pancreas and the islet cells because they were so genetically the same almost, that my body was like, oh, hey, I'm going to start attacking you because you are very similar to what she just had. And actually, a lot of cases are like that. They're finding, around the time I was diagnosed, there was 8 other people within a 100-mile radius, ranging from the age of 13 to 18, who were all diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, who all had similar symptoms,
It's so
which is
young.
really weird. Super weird, right?
So was that ever made known to you, like what they had attributed that to, like why that happened?
They don't know. They just know that it was a very weird coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence. Who knows?
Yeah.
Don't want to be conspiracy theorist or anything, but just odd that, you know, that
Yeah.
many people. So
Yeah. I think of that in the form of a parent, obviously, because I can't put myself in the situation that you must have been in. But had that been my kid, I would have stopped at nothing to figure out what happened. Why did this transpire? Why do 8 other kids in the neighborhood have the same symptom or the same sickness? Like, is it the water? Is it what we're eating? Like, I was asking, I have a friend of mine. Well, actually, I'm not sure how to classify this. maybe you can help. So I I have a friend of my wife who is married to her friend. So her friend's husband. I don't know if that's an
Okay.
acquaintance or a friend, whatever it is. Anyways, he's a dentist.
I was gonna say if you guys hang out, then it can be your friend.
Yeah, we definitely don't hang out. So not a friend, just an
Acquaintance
acquaintance.
then.
I'll say an acquaintance. I'll say a buddy. How about that? So one question I had to him, and this may be taking us off on a huge tangent, but don't worry, I'll bring it right back because I do that a lot. Uh, but one question I had for him was, I said, "So, what did cave people do? Like, what did cavemen do? I mean, if dentists weren't around, or they're just like they walk up to you and go, huh, oh, out, and just like pull their tooth out." And he said, actually, they didn't really have cavities. I was like,
Yeah,
what? How? And he said, well, because not everything was processed. There wasn't any sugar really. I mean, they got most of their food from meat, from vegetables. Now, again,
right.
I say this on the podcast with full disclosure. I don't know what I'm talking about. So if you have questions for your dentist, you want to verify that, go do your own research. Figure it out. Um, don't comment in the comment section and go, actually, cavemen did have cavities. You should read this article. Not going to do it. Okay. Don't waste your breath. Um, but it's interesting because I think about how, like, what we put in our body. I mean, you said that not, this is how we bring it back, is not everything that you put in your body contributes to your nutrition. It's also what you do, what you make your body do, what you put your body through, right? How much sleep you're getting. That's
Yep,
a big thing, especially with sleep apnea. I know from
right.
experience because I snore like an absolute bear. My wife hates it. But what you put in your body has to do, or has to have something to do with it, because I would imagine that diabetes or type 1 would have had something to do with at least what you're eating, right? So maybe processed food, or maybe something that wasn't quite healthy. I mean, was that ever explained to you, like what actually had caused that within you, or was it just a
No, it was the virus.
oh,
It
okay,
wasn't anything I was eating. It was the virus. So
gotcha,
because because the virus was genetically so close to the islet cells, my body started attacking my islet cells because they were so closely related. That's actually a huge reason a lot of people have autoimmune disease these days. And you're right, though. I mean, that's not just, and what I mean by it's not just what you put in your body. What I mean by that is, of course, your food has a huge role. I mean, your food gives you fuel. Your food allows your body to heal itself. It allows it to build new cells. It's either an anti-inflammatory food, which decreases the inflammation in your body, or it's a highly inflammatory food like refined sugar, for instance. That's like the number one no. If you have inflammation in your body, like get rid of processed foods. So bad. Like they're so inflammatory. Um, like it's incredible how our diets and how it just all plays a role. If you go to other countries that are actually underdeveloped, they don't really have autoimmune disease because they don't have all the processed foods. Like they're not exposed to all the chemicals that we're exposed to. Um, so there's actually a really fascinating topic. It's called epigenetics, and it's all about turning genes on and off in your body. And so our genes are actually triggered to turn on or off. And you can, everybody also has the cancer gene. Interesting, right? This is not false. It is true. I promise. I've researched this a lot. But everybody has the cancer gene in their body. It's just whether or not it gets triggered. And a lot of what people don't understand is, like I was saying, it's not just what you're consuming, but it's your environment. If you live in a highly like moldy home, like there's mold in your home, that mold is toxic. You're breathing that in and that's going in your body. It's taking up shelter in your gut and it's wreaking havoc.
yeah,
And you could be using a lot of chemicals in your home. Like Clorox is super bad for you. It's actually contributed to a lot of turning your genes on in your body to make different things happen. If I use Clorox wipes, I get a migraine, I get a rash on my hands, and I start coughing. Like Clorox wipes are no
really,
joke. Yeah. So that's how another way that I address nutrition is environmental, because there's so many things in our environments that we can remove. And I know there's probably going to be a lot of people who listen to your podcast who are like, she's crazy. But there's been so many studies done. And I mean, here's the thing. Would you wipe your butt with Clorox wipes? Probably not. So you probably shouldn't be wiping your counters down with them either. Like, Phil, are you? Clorox
I
wipes are not toilet
mean,
paper.
it's funny you should ask. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was laughing for two reasons. Number one, because you said people would think you're crazy. I don't think that's the case. But number two, because you said a lot of people will listen to my podcast. Not really,
Oh, well,
but we're getting there. We're starting to grow.
those who do.
Yes, those who do. um, yeah. So I know that there's some truth in that because when we moved into our house, again, this is kind of a lesson in purchasing a house online versus purchasing a house and actually going in person and seeing the house. But we moved out of state. So we moved from California to Idaho. We saw this house in the market, 3,500 square feet for like 180K. I was like, why didn't we do this sooner? That's a ton of room, super cheap. So I go out, I walk in the house, and immediately I'm accosted by the smell of cigarette smoke, like within the house. And I looked at my realtor and I went, had I seen this house in person, I would not have bought this. Like, no, because this is going to take a lot of work. I'm going to have to replace the ceilings. I'm going to have to replace the floor because all that stuff is now in the walls, right? I mean, we found mold, right? I mean, when I take a shower, I come out, there's still nicotine that comes out of the wall. Super, super gross. So environment has a lot to do with it. And that's actually, to her credit, that's one thing my wife has actually done a really good job of keeping me in line with, is saying, you can't have this stuff in the house. You're going to clean with this instead of this. You're going to use this towel and not that towel. She started buying me my own soap. I was like, why are you buying me my own shower soap? And she goes, because I don't want those chemicals in your body. I don't want you to get chemicals and get sick, whatever. And I'm like, okay, but it's Old Spice. I like Old Spice because it makes me feel like the Old Spice guy. Um, anyways, I still use the Old Spice. So shout out to Old Spice. Be a sponsor. Um, yeah, so that's something I think people take really for granted every single day, is the environment that they live in.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, those people who live in areas where there's like a lot of factories, or people who were coal mine workers, all these different things, they have so many different health issues that other people who didn't have those jobs, um, they attribute to a lot of the health issues that they're having. And they're starting to see that the more research they do.
Yeah,
And it's it's really sad that we're not as educated as we should be, and that in our society, like, it is pushed to eat junk food, and
mm-hmm.
we are like, every gathering there has to be food, and
Right.
every, let's go out to eat, let's do this, let's do that, like, let's celebrate, let's get cake. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I still love cookies, I still have ice cream, but I just
Yeah.
try to find things that have cleaner ingredients in them. And um things, it was hard. I mean, granted, it's not easy at all, but about a year ago, I started to feel like crap again. And every time I ate, I would get horrible stomach aches. I would I would get migraines. I was even having like behavioral issues. And I know that might sound weird, but there are certain foods that I eat and I go from Breanna to the Hulk. Like, totally different person, super angry, like easily frustrated. And it's like, just like that, super fast.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And so I started looking at different foods that I was eating and I started cutting them out. And a lot of people will probably think this is crazy, but like, I personally, I cannot eat any grains. I can't have any dairy. I can't have any soy. I can't have any refined sugar. Um, I There's a few other things that I can't have. And I know for a lot of people, I mean, my own mother-in-law has said this to me before, but like, oh, you live a really crappy life. Like, you can't eat a lot of stuff. And that's not even the way that it is. Like, I feel so good, and I don't get migraines anymore. I'm not super bloated. Like, I'm not getting stomach aches that are so bad that I feel like I should go to the hospital. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear the banging on the door, but that's my son.
That's
Mom,
okay.
I want to show you something.
You can bring him in. It's fine.
Um,
You can say hi to him.
but it's just, it's amazing when you actually like really want to feel good. And that's the thing. I've had a lot of people where I do a free discovery call. So people can, pop on my website or pop on my Instagram. They can, email me, set up a time to talk, and I'll talk to them and I'll know if they're truly ready to make changes or not, and what they truly, if they truly want to make changes. And it's if that pain point is bad enough, people are going to change. For
Yeah.
instance, Ben, he loves sugar. He loves his sugary treats. Like,
Hmm.
he is like, I'll never give that up. He has been feeling so horrible that he finally came to me. He's like, I can't eat like this anymore. Like, I'm done. I
Yeah.
am done.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
he was getting really fat, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you should tell him that, but he definitely looked like he could lose a few lbs. Just gonna be honest. I'm just kidding. He's a freaking dime piece. Ben
I,
is. He's amazing.
I told him that he'd cry. If I said, Phil thinks you're fat, he'd be
Yeah.
like, what? What? I am fat. And he'd spiral out of control. I'm
He'd
definitely
probably
not
send
telling
me a
him that.
text immediately like, "What are you talking about? I'm fat. Do you really feel that way?"
Oh, 100% he would. He'd probably FaceTime you actually, because
Yeah.
that's like serious business for him.
Hmm.
But going back to like not feeling good like a year ago, I started just eliminating foods. It got to a point where I was literally eating bone broth for 2 weeks because I couldn't eat anything else without getting so sick that it just wasn't like worth eating. And I actually developed like a fear of food. And that's really common with people who have food sensitivities and food allergies and autoimmune disease, is they start to develop a fear of food. And that's really traumatic. And I realized
Yeah.
that was, for me, I was like, okay, that's stupid. Like, just start reintroducing stuff and write it down. And if it doesn't agree with you, then it doesn't agree with you. And then I found all these really cool tests that I could take where I could send in hair samples and spit. And, I haven't done any of these yet, but you can send in poop samples and they'll test that for you and all that jazz. I haven't done that one yet, but I probably will. It's pretty amazing, the stuff that they can find out these days.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, your health is no joke. And if you want to live a full life, then you have to take care of yourself, because your food plays such a big part in your mood. There's something called the gut brain axis. And so if your gut is off, and your microbiome, which is like all the little bacteria that are in your gut, if that's imbalanced, you can actually have depression. You can have anxiety,
Oh
because
yeah.
that is a huge part of your immune system, and it's a huge part of like everything. If your gut is off, you can have hormone imbalances, like all the things.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
that's true too.
I
Like if
just
you don't work out for a while and you feel like you're out of shape, like you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, "Ugh, I have the dad bod," or man, I'm like, what happened to me? I was like 20 pounds lighter 3 months ago, and I put it on super quick. Like that can seriously, like I remember when I was younger. This is back when I was running 8 miles a day. I was training for 10 hours a day for martial arts tournaments, and I remember thinking to myself when I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, man, I'm really out of shape. And what's funny is I look back at that now and I go, I would kill to have the body I had back then. Holy crap. Like I had everything. Like I had a freaking six pack. I had pecs out the wazoo, right? I was so fast. I had so much like endurance. Uh, but yeah, so I would imagine eating, like people don't realize when you eat something, like this has been a big topic on a lot of other podcasts I listen to, like the Joe Rogan Experience. He talks about this a lot, where he's he said on his podcast, I'm probably going to totally uh, obliterate his quote here, but he said something about how sugar has become the most addictive substance in the world, and everybody just accepts it, right? Because it's in
right.
candy, it's in Coke, it's in soft drinks, it's in ice cream, and like you're saying, you get together, you want to have a celebration. There's going to be a whole bunch of sugar in it, right? It's going to be in your cake, it's going to be in your sodas, but everybody's okay, right? But then you look back at like the 1920s. and you look at prohibition and what had happened with like alcohol. And my theory is if you were to do that same thing with sugar, you like the freaking cartel in Mexico would start peddling sugar, and people get pulled over and arrested for having a whole bunch of sugar in their car. We're like, what are you doing with all this sugar? I swear, officer, I'm not going to sell it. I promise. Um, but that's one of the most
I just
damaging
like to
substances
bake
out there.
cookies.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. I was just going to bake some chocolate chips. It's okay. Don't worry about it, officer. Don't take me
Yeah.
to jail.
Well,
Yeah.
it's true though. Like there's a quote that it's not me. I'm sure lots of people say this, but it's like one thing that I always tell people, food is mood. And so I'm, whoever's listening to this podcast or whenever you listen to it or watch it or whatever, like eat something sugary and then see how you feel afterwards. Generally, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
you don't. And anyone who's ever tried to like go off of sugar, you literally
Mm.
have withdrawals, like people who have drug addictions.
Yep.
You'll get migraines, you'll get shaky, you'll get sick, you'll get flu-like symptoms. It's crazy.
Yeah. Um, I did that for a while because uh, back when I was really training, like I actually went on, at the time it was Atkins, now it's keto. It's the same thing. There's no difference. But keto, once you have any processed sugar in your diet, you immediately go out of ketosis. And the whole diet's worthless after that. It takes like 3 to 4 days of clean eating to get back into that process. So you're really incentivized to not go off of it. And that was something that I noticed was I would like honestly be dreaming about muffins and like cupcakes and I mean like I haven't had coffee for 12 or 13 years now, but like I would think about that and go, I want coffee right now. It's so weird. Why? I have no clue. And really it's what you're saying is your body processes that and it goes, well, that was part of our normal intake, and it's such an addictive substance that it really makes you crave it, or at least that's what it made me do. I didn't get the shakes or the cold sweats, but I would wake up going, oh man, I could really use a chocolate chip cookie right now, like seriously.
Yeah, no, it's addictive
Yeah.
and it's it's just it's amazing. I mean, and you look at like all the commercials on TV pushing sugar to kids and everything like that. I mean, it's not just like in our culture, it's pushed by everybody because it's just a huge market.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so then let's say that I was one of your clients and I come to you and I
Okay.
say, hey Breanna, I have a serious problem. I've talked to doctors. They're not diagnosing me with what I think I have, or they're saying, we don't know what it is. It's all in your mind or whatever. Uh, what's your next step after that? Like, what does a discovery meeting with you look like?
So with a discovery call, basically it's just a 15-minute call. It's really short and we go over, what to expect during coaching sessions and kind of go over what goals you have. And it's a way for us to get to know each other better and to see if we're a good fit because maybe our personalities don't mesh. I feel like I'm a likable person, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to like me. And maybe I say something, maybe they don't like this with the way that I speak. Maybe they don't like the way I smile. Who knows what it is, but it's just a time for us to get to know each other better and to really better understand what the expectations are of the client and the coach. And then after that, if they decided to hop on and get coached, they'd have to fill out a very long intake form that tells me like health history, different places they've lived, environment. I mean, that plays a huge part. If somebody could simply have a vitamin D deficiency and knowing that they live in, Oregon or Washington where the sun isn't, certain parts, I know that that's kind of stereotyping, but in certain parts of Oregon, the sun doesn't shine as much as it does in California. And
Right.
so vitamin D deficiency could be a big issue for them. And since I do all coaching online right now, especially because of COVID, I mean, my clients really could come from anywhere. I could have clients in Australia. So that's another thing. I make sure that I'm really well educated in other cultures and testing that's available there and different things like that, because I want to make sure that I can truly help people with what they need. Um, so basically the first session after the initial like discovery call is like a 45-minute session. We go over the whole intake form. We discuss goals, and they could be anything, you know, goals of losing weight, goals of feeling better, goals of having more energy. Maybe they just want to learn how to deal with stress better. Um, Most of my clients that I've had, in fact, all of them that I've had, they have autoimmune disease, or they have, you know, they have something, but they don't know what it is just yet. Some of them have been diagnosed, and others, they think they have an autoimmune disease, but they're not sure. Um, but the interesting thing is that as we talk, we start talking about their life and what's going on. Their first goal is never um, food related. It's never like, oh, I want to eliminate sugar, or oh, I want to test my food allergies, or I want to do this. It's always stress related,
Yeah.
or building a relationship with themselves. And until you have that relationship with yourself, you're not going to have that motivation that you need to go forward. And until you know how to manage stress, you're not going to be able to think of like, okay, going off sugar, I can manage going off sugar for a week to see how I feel. I can manage going off sugar for 3 days just to see how it makes me feel like. I could keep a food journal if I need to. But if you don't have that relationship with yourself and that confidence in yourself, then you're not going to be able to push forward. And if you don't know
Yeah.
how to manage stress in a healthy way, then you're also not going to be able to move forward in those bigger steps, because thinking about that is going to be absolutely overwhelming, because it's not easy, but it's so worth it. I mean, I feel so good. Like, it's just so worth it.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say the two biggest things, well, not say, but I was going to ask the two biggest things that you probably undoubtedly deal with are people that are opposed to change, people that don't want to change up their diet, they don't want to keep a food journal. I mean, it really, when it comes down to it, it takes a lot of like self-control, self-discipline to manage that. And just like in sales, I mean, it's funny how this all kind of ties back into like a parallel with sales, because with sales, you have to understand the motivation for someone to want to change in order to get them to go down that
Right.
road and actually do something that's going to help their business, right? Like on your
Yeah.
side of it, it's so much more important than what I do, because you're literally having to recognize what somebody's motivation is going to be to change themselves, to change how they feel, to change their behavior. And that's the biggest thing that, I mean, behavior is the biggest
Yeah.
thing, the biggest reason why people would bring kids to martial arts schools. They tell me, like, I don't want my kid to learn how to punch and kick. I want him to learn self-esteem. I want him to say, yes, dad, yes, mom at home, and do it immediately. And me not having to tell him to pick up the room and keep the room clean. Like, I want you to teach him that part. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. Right. With you, have you experienced with certain patients where you take them on board, they fill out the questionnaire, you go through the first thing, you're like, okay, look, we got to try to cut out as much of the sugar as possible for at least a week. Have you had somebody go, that's not happening?
So I'll bring it back to the I'm not the expert. So, and like I said, when I say that, it's not because I'm not certified, because I'm certified. I have 2 different certifications, soon to have 3. I have a bachelor's degree. Like, I've got all the paper certifications and paper proof that you need. But when it comes to coaching, like, you're truly the expert on yourself. You know, if you came to me, you're like, hey, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, what have you tried in the past to lose weight? What's been successful? I don't know that. You know, I guide you, I ask questions, I hold you accountable, I educate you, and I share with you. You know, that's what I do. And
Yeah.
obviously I have a skill set that allows me to do that. Like, I can help people to release trauma from their life to a certain degree. And if it got to, you know, another degree, I would definitely refer them out to see like a
But
psychologist
Breanna,
or a
I
therapist.
take a hydroxycut pill after every milkshake I drink every night. I don't know why I'm not losing weight. I have no idea. It's not working.
Yeah, that is definitely not good. But that's why I say that I'm not the expert. You're the expert on yourself, but I help you stay accountable. I help you find that motivation. I help you discover your bigger why. I help you stay on track. You know, I know things that will work. I have tests that I can, you know, order and be able to read those and help you, like I can explain them to you, and then you make the choices. You set your goals. We co-create. So everything about coaching is co-creating a plan, because I could tell you, hey, Phil, you're not eating sugar for 2 weeks. You're going to have kale salads every day. And you're going to say, screw that. That's bullcrap. I'm not doing that. I hate kale. I love sugar. So no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's not going to work for you. So I
Right.
actually just had a potential client tell me that. She's like, I want you to just create a plan for me. Like, I don't need to be coached. And so I asked her, okay, so if I give you that plan, then what are you going to do with it? I said, are you going to be successful with it?
Right.
Are you going to hold yourself accountable? Like, are you going to be able to revamp it if it's not working? Who are you going to bounce those ideas off of? Who is going to be there for you? And she was like, nobody. And I would totally fall off the bandwagon probably within a week. And I said, that's the whole point of coaching right there.
Right.
You don't have to work on the same thing every week, but you have somebody to help you uncover you. I hold space for people so they can rediscover who they are and take back their lives, find their fire, and then ignite that transformation into their life so that they can find optimal health. That's
I
what I
love
do.
that.
I know it sounds simple, but it's true. Like, most people don't have that space. They tell their spouse something, or they tell their mom something, or their best friend, and they're like, oh, whatever. I'm not saying that no one is supportive, but somebody who's somebody who you're paying to listen to you is going to listen at a different level, when all the rest of the world is just so preoccupied on themselves. And when I, like, 15 minutes before every coaching session, I I have a ritual that I do so that I leave everything behind and I totally focus on my client, because that's who's most important at that time. And if they talk the entire 45 minutes and I don't get a word in edgewise, that's exactly how the coaching session was supposed to go.
Right.
It's about them, and it's about finding what they need.
That's awesome. I'm super happy for you. And honestly, I was like, I don't know if Ben told you this, but when we were talking about having him on the podcast, I had asked him afterwards. I said, "So, how's everything going at home? How's the family? How are things?" He goes, "Oh, it's good. Actually, Brianna's started a business as well. It's this like health thing, autoimmune thing." I was like, "Okay, we have to have her on." So literally, you would have been my second guest on the show had the internet stuff not happened and life gets crazy or whatever. But for those of you that are looking to find uh, the website that we're talking about, and also Brianna's coaching company, and to have that first discovery meet with her, where can they look? Where can they find you?
So right now, Instagram is probably one of the best places to find me, because I'm currently in the process of building my website. But if they do want to go to my website, they can, and actually they can sign up for emails there, and also send me an email. So the website is www.ignitingtrans or no, it's not. It's www.ignitingtc.com, and then my Instagram is igniting transformation. You'll know you've reached my website because you'll see a phoenix on the page. And also on my Instagram account, it's a mint phoenix with my name, Igniting Transformation, across the front. Um, Interesting story. So I took a long time trying to figure out my logo, and I chose the phoenix. And the phoenix actually has a dahlia that's kind of being born. The phoenix is being born from this dahlia. So if you do go to my website, you'll have to check out my phoenix, because it's pretty amazing. But basically, it represents new birth and, or excuse me, rebirth and growth and strength and courage in adversity. And that's really what I want my clients to feel when they're with me, is I want them to understand that they're not in this alone, because it sucks feeling that way. And I know firsthand. But to also be courageous and just know that we will find that root cause and you will find that fire. And that as we go through it, you'll be given tools to help you throughout the whole journey, and just be able to ignite that transformation like that phoenix. And I chose specific colors for it that meant something to me, but I also use the color fire spectrum. As the fire burns hotter, it changes color. So it kind of starts out yellow, and then that red, and then it expands out to purple and to blue. And that's how I want people to be. Is I want it to be small, so they have that little, ignition of fire in them where they start to feel that confidence. And then as it burns hotter and as they get more excited and more confident, that they finally are just like, I can do this. And they really take control over their autoimmune disease or whatever it is. If anyone doesn't have an autoimmune disease, I can still coach you. I've been trained in a bunch of different areas, but the most important thing is I just want everybody to be able to have optimal health and to enjoy life to the fullest and not have to feel like crap.
Yeah, that's honestly, I feel like for a lot of people, if they're listening to this and again, they feel hopeless or they feel lost. Like I know a lot of times when I have conversations with my wife and she tells me how she feels and the anxiety kicks in. To me, it's tough as a husband because you want to try to fix everything, right? You want to try to come up with a
Yeah.
solution and say, this is what you should do, right? Or I mean, you just feel helpless. And I would imagine in
Yep.
her space, she probably feels extremely helpless dealing with that. So it is amazing, Breanna, that you have this company, that you started this company. I'm so excited to see how quickly you grow, especially with the current term or the current events of COVID, having put everything on a virtual thing. I mean, I think you'll be ahead of the game as far as that goes because last time I talked to Ben, he said all about the virtual thing and the Zoom thing. So I don't foresee any hiccups with that. But once again, everybody, this has been Stop Interviewing, Start Selling with Breanna Baker. And I'm your host, Phil Meyer. Once again, hit her up. Real quick, before we end the show, and I always give a shout out to LinkedIn for this. Without LinkedIn, I would not be able to have the connections that I have. Once again, just to clarify, LinkedIn is not a sponsor, but I still talk about them every single podcast because they have changed my whole world as far as the professional realm goes, as far as meeting with salespeople, connecting people. Sharing this podcast with so many people on LinkedIn has been awesome. So thank you so much for those of you who have followed me on LinkedIn. You have a LinkedIn page as well, correct?
I do. Yep.
So look up Breanna Baker on LinkedIn. It's Breanna Baker, Baker. I was informed by my wife not to call you Breanna because
Correct.
that's what I call my sister-in-law. She said that you would beat me up, and I believe it. So it is Breanna. Okay, say it right. Look her up on LinkedIn, look her up on Instagram, look her up on our website. Guys, thank you so much for having us, and we will talk to you guys later. Breanna, thank you so much again.
Thank you.